Welcome to Parent Coaches Unleashed, the podcast where we dive into the highs, lows, and did that really just happen moment of parenting teens and young adults. We're Carrie and Jessica, parent coaches, mythbusters, and occasional referees in the battle of hormones versus common sense.
If you've ever wondered, is this just happening to me? You're not alone. We're here to help you with real talk, expert advice, and hopefully a few laughs along the way. Need more support? We also offer private coaching, workshops, and speaking engagements because sometimes even parents don't have all the answers.
So continue listening as we tackle this parenting journey together.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's episode of Parent Coaches Unleashed. Hi, Carrie.
Hi, Jess. How you doing?
I'm doing okay. So,
I'm going to apologize to everyone. I might be nasally today as I have that winter cold.
well, we hope you feel better soon.
Thank you.
So today's topic is an interesting one. I feel like for Carrie and I, it's been floating around for at least a year, right, Carrie? Wouldn't you say?
At
At
least.
least that.
Yeah.
It's been popping up for us on social media, and we kept saying there's something here. There's something we need. We have to figure out. We have to find the right resources to guide us through such a sensitive topic. And I hate to say a trending issue, but unfortunately, that's what it is. So we dug back into our pool of resources and found one of our absolute favorite therapists to talk us through the increase of young adults becoming estranged or going no contact from their families. So with us today, please welcome back to the show, Jen Kelman. Hi, Jen.
I am so happy to be back here, not just for being back with both of you, but knowing that we were on together so long ago and your show is thriving with great listeners. And so it's thrilling for me on all aspects.
Jen, thank you so much. I really appreciate you saying that. So we're just going to dive right in. When we reached out to you and said estrangement, no contact, you were like, "Yes, I'm on board." So are you seeing what we're seeing?
So you were upset to use the word trending, but unfortunately it's the right word because it is trending. I have seen it in my private practice. I've seen it in my work with Just Answer, which I had told you about last time,
Yeah. Hmm.
um, which is an online platform which allows me to reach a lot more people. And unfortunately, it's become a trend where to succinctly state something, any little difficulty, rather than work through discomfort, kids more and more are just throwing up their hands and going no contact rather than sitting in the muck, we can say it that way,
Right.
working through some discomfort and difficulties and finding a space of at least acceptance. I don't know that we should always be looking for common ground because if we're always looking for common ground and we don't find it, then we're giving license to the estrangement. So rather than we have to find common ground, how about we have to listen and understand and feel and hear the perspective of the other person?
Carrie, that goes right back to what I keep saying. It's all about communication.
Yes.
We're going to get those hats printed up. It's all about communication.
There we go. I think we might enter the merch arena. And you know
Are
what?
we?
I have a contact for that.
Carrie's son,
My son.
Ryan. Shout out to Ryan.
Yeah.
Are we using estrangement and no contact synonymously? Are they the same thing?
Another good question. I remember this from the first time I was with both of you. You asked brilliant questions, and I love to be around brilliant people. So thank you.
This is why we love Jen on the show. She's so
We're just having
complimentary.
fun. Keep
I
telling
don't
us
blow
how
smoke. It's all
brilliant.
true. It's all true. No smoke. So children that are going no contact, and that's usually the direction where it's the child making that decision. So let's sort of open that up as well. It's rarely the parent that is making that decision.
Yeah.
I'm not to say it doesn't happen, but the direction is usually, and when I say child, I'm not talking about a 4-year-old. It could be an adult child. it is usually from that direction, that choice. So no contact ends up being estrangement. And there is something in between that where we could call it low contact or minimal contact. I also want to be very clear as we move through this whole topic that I don't come down on a side one way or the other. And here's why. Because I never want a child that has been abused to feel that staying in that relationship is the right way to go, because we are talking about this upward trend of children making the choice to go no contact. So if there has been abuse where it really threatens the further harm and safety of that child, it may not be toxic to pull away. It may be
Mhm.
toxic to stay in. So we need to delineate that clearly so that we're speaking to both people, if you will. The child that is, in quotes, having a tantrum, that their parents differ on their political beliefs and decide to go no contact, is very different than the child who has suffered at the hands of a parent and has decided for their safety and well being to remove themselves from that relationship, because we cannot prescribe to that child that they should be staying in.
Thank you for clearing that up. I think that's really important to say. It's
Yeah. And is there a difference between the adult child setting boundaries and no contact or no contact? Are there differences or is it the same thing? Does no contact really mean I am never going to talk to you again?
Well, it's funny, Carrie, you saying that before you answer, Jen. When you say putting up healthy boundaries or no contact, I think depending on the generation of the parents, so many parents are not used to boundaries that when their child does set one, it feels like they're saying, I want nothing to do with you anymore. Am I on the right track, Jen? Or
Yes, you're absolutely on the right track. And so many thoughts go through my head when you bring up so many good points. And the first is that I will make a large generalized statement here that the parents of nowadays, is that an accurate way, grammatically correct way to
instead
say
of
it?
the olden days?
Right. It's the olden days, like me. Um, we understand what healthy boundaries are for our children in order to thrive. And the most successful relationships of any kind are where healthy boundaries exist. The estrangement or no contact comes from my view as I'm listening to you ask that question is from the lack of ability to set that boundary at any point in the relationship. So
Mhm.
boundaries haven't been set. Needs and desires haven't been communicated to wear our hats. It's all about communication. So then it's almost, well, what do I do? We've had this problem. Oh, I'm out. Instead of having that relationship grow over time and boundaries change over time as well. For example, a young child might have a strict boundary of there's no TV tonight. It's a school night. There's homework. As that child gets older, maybe that boundary is loosened. I keep using the political um, discussion as an example
Mhm.
because that seems to come my way a lot in practice
Oh,
and on Just Answer. But there are many other topics that cause these rifts. Um, but there is a way to have boundaries. And sometimes, notice I'm not saying healthy boundaries all the time because sometimes boundaries can be inflexible and too rigid where they're not healthy. Again, there's that.
can you give us an example of that? Like an
Yes.
unhealthy or rigid?
So where there's no movement over time, where you're not recognizing the growth of the person that you're in a relationship with. So
Mm,
boundaries can change over time. I almost started to say boundaries are fluid, but I didn't want any listener to believe that I meant that they're meant to be intruded upon. Again, everything is a little nuance.
right.
So let's say it this way that boundaries change over time. As relationships shift, children grow older. If boundaries are continually intruded upon, that's also where relationships suffer. So, healthy boundaries are one that exist where both all people in the relationship are allowed to grow, are allowed to be individuals, and aren't being stifled by an inflexible, rigid boundary. And those would not be considered healthy.
When you have a patient, a client decide to go no contact or become estranged from their parents, does it come as a shock to the parent? Like, do they or what emotions do they report that their parents have surrounding their child's decision to do this?
Devastation,
Mm.
confusion, anger, disbelief. And most of the people, when you say, like, are your clients say, but most of the clients that come to me with this, whether it's in practice or on Just Answer, are from the parents. You know, we're
So you're seeing more of the parent side than the young adult side.
correct because the young
Okay.
adult side is so perhaps quick to make that decision without much forethought, without much emotion attached to it. It's just to satisfy that quick knee jerk reaction of their own anger and disappointment and throwing their hands up that they get out. And the parent is usually the one left scratching their head, wondering, and with a ton of self recrimination and looking over the course of their relationship to see where they went wrong, to see
Mhm.
what tipped the scale. And I will, it's never about me deciding for that parent how they should go about things. But if I were to give a tip about it, is that you should, of course, always look inward to see where, you might have had some impact um, in the lessening of the connection, we'll call it, not necessarily the complete disconnection, but that's healthy to look inward because you'd want to do that for any relationship that's gone bad. But if parents start to become like Gumby, and maybe I'm dating myself then as well, where Gumby is very pliable. If you start to bend over backwards, become a different human being, um, twist and contort yourself in a way just to satisfy that child to come back, you are not in an authentic relationship to yourself and to that child. And that's not true healing, and it's not true connection or reconnection. So, what do we do in those moments for the parents? Of course, look inward, but where they maintain their views, their experiences also with that child, and not have to give over all the time. If the parent has done something, of course, egregious, and they've done soul searching and the child disconnect, that is maybe different where you do need to look inward. But for these quick, knee jerk, I don't like your right leaning politics, I don't like your left leaning politics, I'm out, to then say, okay, I'll be more on the left or I'll be more on the right to satisfy, you are not healing that relationship at all. So it's important to look inward, but to abandon your beliefs, your values, to hope that the child comes back. We are not living in an authentic relationship. So now you're going to say to me, well, Jen, if everyone is just maintaining their position, I know how you guys are thinking.
Can you
Are we
see
that
us? We're like
transparent?
trying really hard to withhold our
I'm
questions.
writing, I don't want to forget this. I don't.
I know what your next thought is.
Yep.
Um, this is like on the pickleball court. I know where the next shot is going all the time. Okay, stop. I'll behave. I'm back. So,
No, it's
um,
highly entertaining when Jessica and I could just sit back and listen to talk.
and now I don't even remember what I was saying.
Reconnection
You were,
or
yes. Your last thought was when parents bend to what their
Their
children
children.
want, it's not healthy for them. And
Correct.
then you were assuming what my next thought was going to be.
Right. And so, okay, then how do we reconnect?
yes.
If the child usually wants the parent to come over to their side, to see their viewpoint, and not only just to see it and hear it, but to subscribe to it. And if we get stuck in that, we'll call it an impasse, reconnection can't happen. Reconnection also doesn't happen by the parent pushing. Pushing never works. It's crucial to know that. Pushing never works. Okay, here's your next question. Okay, well, then how does reconnection happen? Usually, an event in the child's life where they need the reminder of those roots. So remember, we've all spoken the cute little term, roots and wings. We give
Mhm.
our kids roots and we give them wings. And in times of difficulty, a job loss, difficulty in their own relationships, um, anything where they're thrown in a tizzy, they might and hope come back to their roots for that um, open armed welcome.
Mhm.
So when that happens, and it most often does, you will absolutely continue and maintain that disconnection if there is any, I told you so, if there is any, oh, now you want to come back? Now you need me? Where were you when I blah, 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 blah? The response should be, I am so sorry you are suffering. I am here always. I am your roots and I will never leave and abandon you, even if we have disagreements or disagree on various topics.
That's a really powerful statement right there.
Do
I
you
I am
Right.
curious about something though. Uh, am I wrong in thinking so what you're describing on on the adult child's part is a very impulsive reaction. So is it realistic to believe that these parents never saw anything like this coming? And is it possible or have you experienced when maybe the parents weren't being 100% honest with themselves and couldn't see their role in the destruction of the relationship?
It's a great way to formulate those questions. And when we talk about impulse or knee jerk reaction, it's almost like the same thing as saying, oh, they were an overnight sensation when their song became a number one hit. But there were years behind that
Right.
overnight sensation. So this knee jerk impulsive reaction is still having years behind that, possibly. And then one thing tipped the scale, and then it was a knee jerk quick reaction to go no contact. Does that
Mhm.
make sense?
Yeah. But are you there to point out to your parents, to your if your client if your client is the parent in that kind of situation, do you say to them, "Well, let's look back at the relationship together. Do you remember when this happened? Do you remember when that happened?"
So it's important to be able to help them go through things. And rather than instance by instance or
Right.
example by example, I rather work on the substance
Right.
of the relationship instead of, oh well, this happened last Tuesday, and then 3 years ago on a Thursday this happened. But
I
more
don't
about,
mean exactly like pinpointing that. I'm just talking about like
but a lot of people get caught in that.
right,
Mhm.
And it's
okay.
important to talk about that. A
Okay.
lot of people will say, I can't believe you don't remember that at my bar mitzvah, you
Uh-huh.
made me look stupid because you didn't like the suit I was wearing. And I never stopped hearing about it. And then last week, I was reminded by that because I walked into your house and I saw that same look of disappointment.
Mhm.
Boom, there it is.
Mhm.
So we, I like to say it this way, it's like, I want to focus on the process rather than just the pinpoint experiences. It's not to say we won't look at the experiences, but how those collective experiences impacted the quality of the relationship all the time.
Hmm.
So going back to this bar mitzvah, silly bar mitzvah example, if that child then internalized that and walked around with, I always feel criticized by my mom or my dad, and they're walking around with that, never verbalizing how they feel. The parent doesn't understand how their one-liner about their bar mitzvah suit or what they're wearing today to go for Sunday night dinner has had that impact.
Mhm.
They bring that to the table, their way of relating, where if you probably ask them or put the mirror up, they'd be like, oh my God, I didn't mean that. I, I didn't even know that that was so impactful or was so negative. But the child has internalized the negativity and the disdain and walking around and holding on to it for years. And then you enter into a new example and they go, that is it. Done. Can't do it anymore.
But what do you say to that child who did not know that they were a child? They carried this thought with them all through their years. Now it's their young adult life. What if they were never given the tools to know how to deal with that negative comment or to say, you really hurt my feelings when you said this. And then you come to this, they say one more thing, like you're saying, and then it's boom. But if that child was never given the tools on how to communicate that, and now they realize they're an independent young adult and they don't have to take this comment from you again after all these years, the child has had that feeling for so long because they did not know how to express themselves.
Correct.
And if they were not a family who went to therapy or had any tools for communicating, and then this parent says this,
Can
it
I
it
comment for a sec? I
yes,
just wanted
please.
from so I hear what you're saying, Jessica, and the question that you're asking of Jen. Can
Can you ask it
you
better than I did?
No, no, no. I'm just asking you. Can you now maybe see the young adult's perspective on maybe why taking a pause or no contact with the parent at this moment so they can now have the time quiet from the parent to maybe work through these things. Like if they have
Yes.
not had the time to do that and this one comment has like stuck with them and now it's the
Right.
right, like now I can maybe see
But here's the
why.
interesting thing.
Yep.
It is rare. Let me say it differently. It's not likely that the child that goes no contact seeks therapy.
Okay.
What we are finding in this trend, Jess, to go back to use your word, is that rather than I'm estranged from my parents, let me get into therapy and work this out, they are finding on social media groups,
Mm,
connections, support, and clapping for the decision,
mhm.
which further alienates
Yeah.
themselves from their feelings. Notice I didn't say only further alienates from the relationship to that parent, but it is further disconnection from their own experience and their own emotions. So, all these social media groups, TikToks, all this, estrangement, this, cut off, that, no contact here. They're getting the cheering section, but the cheering section isn't doing anything to help them to see that that loss of connection could have an impact.
Mhm.
Now, let me go back, Carrie, to what you said about the pause. Pauses are okay, but communicate that pause.
Yeah.
So, what I mean by that is, you know what, mom? You know what, dad? I realized I don't have the skills to talk, and we're in a bad place. We're not communicating well. In the interest of not harming this relationship further, I want to step out. I want to take a little break. I want to find myself. I want to grow individually for a little bit. And then hopefully we can come back and reconnect when I feel stronger about who I am. Because the loss of self can be so great in that. And just the disconnect doesn't reconnect them to themselves. Now, Jess, you're going to ask me, well, Jen, we just talked about if that child's never been given the tools to communicate, how are they then going to communicate that so
Mhm.
eloquently to their parent?
Well, as you're saying that, I'm like, this child has definitely been through years of therapy to be able to say that to their parents.
Right. So maybe they can't say it in the way in which I did, but maybe we could help them to just say, I need a break for a little bit.
Mhm.
It's not no contact, which is forever. I just need a break.
Is this
That
maybe
is
where that
possible.
phrase, I need space could come in? I do know some young adults right now that are saying, "Mom, Dad, I need space." Is that what they mean?
So I don't know why that just made my hair stand up, but it did because it's one of these things. And I'm all about obviously people having their space for their emotion, but it's almost like a quip that's become, the cry of I need space. And now it's almost off putting that if someone says, I need space, and you want to understand further, now you're doing something harmful and encroaching on them because they've just announced they need space.
Mhm.
I don't know why I need a break or I'd like to take a little break. Feels better to me where it's clear I need space. If someone were to say I need space, I would want to go back in and be like, why? Like, what's up? And maybe it's all the same. Maybe some of your listeners are like, no, Jen, it's the same for me. And maybe it is. Everyone gets to have their own perspective. But a break implies longer than space. How long is space? I don't know. Is that physical space? What is it?
Right.
I need a break. I don't know how long that's going to be. I love you. I just need to be on my own for a bit.
Hmm.
Okay.
Let's say that did happen to one of our listeners, okay? At what do you come back to your a young adult child and say? Do you say, do you wanna is it okay to say, "Do you wanna break from all communications? Can I text you if something happens? I'm not expecting a reply." Like, is it okay to ask, I guess, for boundaries around the break? Like, what does that mean to you?
I was just going to say that, Jess, you've come full circle with, so what's the boundary around that? And that's absolutely, it's a brilliant thing to ask. So I hear you. So I'm the mom. I'm your mom for a minute, Jess, Carrie. I hear you. I absolutely want to respect that. Yes, I might feel differently and want different things, but I don't want to encroach on that. So your birthday's coming up. Am I allowed to text you? I, of course, would be hard for me to let that go by. I don't want an absence of any type of text for you to ever feel that I've moved out of this relationship because I won't do that. But again, I don't want to over text and you feel I'm not respecting. Sure, mom. Sure, dad. You know what? Of course, send me a text for the birthday. But you know what? We usually speak every day or once a week. I don't want that. Unless it's a special occasion or something's going on, let me be the one to reach out. Okay, honey, well, that feels a little scary for me. What if you never reach out? Because that's going to come up. And we don't know what the answer is to that. We
Right.
might not be able to get all the answers. And remember, wanting all the answers at that moment is more about our need. So now you're going to say, well, why is it just the child's need that's being paid attention to? It's not, but they're the one asking for the break. And so on some level, we have to pull back a bit and give them that growing moment or moments so that hopefully they can come back. And again, if we push, they disappear. If we give them that room to breathe and grow, then maybe they come back to their roots.
It feels like what you're describing,
It's
it it
brutal.
it aside from brutal, just from a mom's perspective, if one of my children ever said this to me, I would love to be able to hand it as eloquently as you just described. I I first of all, I would absolutely be blindsided because I feel like we have open lines of communication, but I would be hurt. It feels like what you're describing is like a bad breakup, like just like back in high school again and your boyfriend or girlfriend are breaking up with you, and it just feels like a tremendous heartache.
And here's why it's more devastating. Because if we look, breakups in high school are supposed to happen, right?
Right. Mhm.
But a breakup with your parent isn't in the,
Not in the
handbook that we never
manual.
got,
Right,
No.
right, right.
right?
Mhm.
The
Well,
one that we
first of all,
never got.
there is no manual.
Right.
Correct. And it's funny because I was just reminded of a memory of my own with my own kids. from a young age, when we would have difficult moments, whatever they would be, I always said to them, there is no issue that could ever make me want to pull away from you. It doesn't mean that times will be easy all the time,
Right.
but there's nothing that we can't get through by communicating. And so I hope that if there's ever anything I've done that hurts you, you would be able to come and talk with me. And you just reminded me that I've had that conversation from the time they were young. They're now 16. I have 16-year-old twins that I hope that they could remember that. And as I'm saying that to you, that's something that a parent could say to their child when they are hit with that.
Mhm. Right.
And the statement could be, I never thought we'd end up here. There's no issue from my end that I wouldn't look deeply about my behavior, see what my role is, see my part. I'm not going to push you, but I want you to know I'm always here and ready and willing to do the work of my part, whatever that is.
And what if they're not?
If they're
What if
not
the
ready,
parent sees I did nothing? What if the parent maintains I've done nothing wrong? I don't know why you're doing this.
well, then they run the risk
Mhm.
of that being an inflexible boundary because
True.
that's a boundary in themselves that is unwilling to look inward. And if you are unwilling to look inward, whether it's the bar mitzvah suit analogy, or I always hated that girlfriend, or any little thing that is built up over time, that one moment has become 1,000 moments leading to that disconnect. I
Hmm.
think you are being short sighted of how relationships go because we, and this is crucial for your listeners, we are not perfect specimens. And every single one of us say the wrong thing often.
Mhm.
Every single one of us has an emotional reaction that may not be warm and wonderful because we are not robots. We make mistakes. We say the wrong things. We do the wrong things. We harm people without intention. So if you can give yourself a little grace in that, you might have more of an ability to look inward and to see what your part is. Again, not to confuse any of this with the abusive parent, whether that child has been
Sure.
physically, mentally, or sexually abused.
Mhm. So, Jen, we had a listener write in, and I'm not going to read the whole letter because it was very lengthy, explaining a lot of details in their family background. I'm just going to try and paraphrase it for you. Our listener was about to become a dad for the first time. He had some issues with his own dad, financial stuff that the dad did to him. They found a way to move past it. I don't believe there were any apologies, but they found a way to move past it. And now his wife, the child's wife, is pregnant. They're having their first child, this father's first grandchild. They chose a day to have a gender reveal party, and the father of the child did not like the date that they chose, said some derogatory things
Wait,
about
the grandfather. The
the grandfather,
grandfather
Soon to
soon
be
to be
didn't.
grandpa.
grandfather.
Okay.
The grandfather did not like the date that was chosen, said some what he explained later to be funny, but said some derogatory things about his son's wife, trying to be humorous that the son did not find humorous. And he said to his dad, I don't like what you're saying, blah, blah, blah. And then decided, you know what, until we can get past this, I don't want to talk to you. And all the father kept saying, we would send him texts and say, I don't know what I did wrong. Can't we talk? I didn't do anything wrong here. And his wife said to him, maybe you don't want to end your relationship so quickly with your dad. And his response was, our job is to protect our baby. If I feel like this person, whoever it is bringing toxicity into our home and into this relationship, it is our job to protect our child. The baby was born. The child's father kept s- not taking any blame or looking in to see their part in what had happened. And he has not let his father see the baby. And the extended family keeps coming back to this new dad saying, "When are you going to let him see his first grandchild? And can't you just forgive him and move on and move past this?" And the listener was asking, what does he say to these extended family when he feels very strongly about not allowing his father into a relationship with his child without a discussion and an apology when this father is not willing to admit that he did anything wrong?
Well, I love this listener. I want to give him and his wife and his baby a hug. That's not creepy. That's just an emotional, nice response. Um, so there are many things that at play here. Clearly, there were a lot of issues earlier because they've had some issues
That's
around this
yes, that's
financial stuff
yeah.
that the son obviously um, moved past.
Mhm.
Not saying let go because I
Right.
don't think we truly ever let go, but
Nope.
moved past. I think the son has a terrific boundary on what he will accept for his wife and his child. I think the extended family members are overstepping a boundary
Mm,
by talking to new dad and giving their opinions and pushing,
right.
right? We said pushing doesn't help. They should not be involved at all. But this listener has, I think, a wonderful grasp on his own emotions and what he wants for his family. So, what I would be counseling toward and helping this dad, two things. One, does he want, if the dad could behave, let's just put that as a, does
Mhm.
he want his father to be able to be a grandfather to his and his wife's child?
Right.
And if he does, and I believe he does, only because he's gotten through something with him before, and he's an adult who clearly has the skills to emote what he feels because he's written into you,
Mhm.
that he goes to the dad and says, I would love that you have a relationship with me, my wife, and my child, but you have done things in the past that have made me wary of letting you in. Just because you say something is a joke doesn't mean it's a joke. And if you thought it was funny, but nobody else thought it was funny, it's not funny.
Hmm.
You hurt my wife with the disparaging comments. I will not accept that. So here are our boundaries. And no, I'm not asking you to walk on eggshells because that's usually a comment you get from the parent side. I can't know how I'm supposed to act around you. You making me walk on eggshells. This isn't about eggshells. This is about us being vulnerable once again and letting you in. And here's what needs to happen. And if you can do it, we welcome you with open arms, Dad. And that is no disparaging comments about my wife, no disparaging comments about my baby, no rehashing the past in front of my wife or my growing baby, soon to be a toddler, blah, 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 that will understand things. So if you can be a warm, loving guy without judgment, let's give it a shot. But if you can't, and this comes up again, I will remind you that this is what the boundaries are for both my wife, myself, and what we are setting for our child. Clear as day.
I love that. I hope our listener is taking notes and can
Yeah.
just transcribe exactly what you said
I
into
hope so.
some kind of correspondence with their father.
Now, let me say the other side, just in case they are listening.
Okay?
They've thrown their hands up and they're fed up, and they're just feeling bombarded by the family members, and they don't want to give it another shot. I don't feel that that's the case, but I
Mhm.
want to give that as a possibility. And then that conversation is, Dad, I've had too many experiences over my lifetime with you. This one, you hurt me financially. Now you've hurt my wife. And I just don't want that energy in our lives. So for the time being, I'm going to say we need to step out. I'm not necessarily looking for an apology, but I know that one would come if you did look inward and saw what you did often has hurt me and has hurt my wife.
Hmm.
I don't want people to stand on ceremony and be like, I need the apology, because that's like making the toddler apologize
Right,
when
right, right. When
little
they don't know
Jimmy
what
hit
they
little
did.
Susie
Right.
over the head with Play-Doh.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Make sure you apologize to little Susie. Well,
What does
that's
that
not
mean? It's
real.
right. Mhm.
Right. So looking inward and then realizing, you know what? If grandpa really wants this relationship, he will look inward. And that's also another thing that your listener can say. I'm not threatening you at all. But if this is truly meaningful for you, you would look inward and you would take a peek at what I have felt and what my wife felt. So I hope you can do that, Dad. But if you can't, I respect that in you as well.
Hmm.
And then he gets to make his choice. Because we can't make people change, but we can put out what we need. If they can do it, great. If they can't, then we have the agency to make a choice that works best.
Thank you. I think that if I was the listener, I would think that would be really helpful.
Yeah.
So I
Well,
really
yeah,
appreciate you
you
taking the
gave
time
2
to answer
options,
that.
2
I
very
I
well
hope
thought
so.
out options, yeah.
I
Thank
am
you.
just curious. So you mentioned politics. You mentioned this was about a new baby and some behaviors. Are there other glaring factors that are creating this divide and for adult children to take this stance?
So anything and everything nowadays. Sorry, this trend is really just like, you know what? You angered me so much. I'm out. There's become less of a desire to sit in some discomfort and possibly grow stronger. It feels easier in the moment to just throw your hands up. But the problem with that is that what feels easy in the moment tends to be very, very disappointing long term.
Yeah.
And that's when children come back, when they realize they miss that connection, they miss that emotionality, they miss that home base, they miss those roots.
Hmm.
And like your listener, he's had a baby, so it's brought all this stuff up. But
Right.
those are the life events where this stuff gets re-kicked up, so to speak. So sure, politics, babies being born, breakups, um, a look, a look that reminds them of 1,000 looks beforehand.
Hmm.
There's no way to really know. It's an individual experience.
Right.
But I do
So
think this trend is just it's too trendy.
it's a painful one for
It's almost as bad as duck lips when duck lips went out in every photo, right? It's as
Yeah,
difficult
but
as that
duck
takes.
lips didn't hurt anybody.
Well, it hurt me every
Well,
time I saw them.
actually, wait, let's not say that. It has created a slew of now a lot of younger women needing to inject their lips because then they have all sorts of wrinkles and things from making that
That's our
face
next
over and over
podcast.
and over. Yeah, whole 'nother thing.
so just one more thing before we wrap up. I feel like a lot of what we read was a lot of college age students taking this stance and going no contact. What is a parent's financial responsibility to a child who cut them off? Is there what
Hey,
do you say to those people?
you think we can wrap up quickly after that loaded one? Okay.
Have
So
at it, Jen. You can do anything.
okay. So let me say it this way. Because when you first said it's college age, here's why that is. Because kids go to college and they're free and they're in
Mm,
a group think mentality. And so they're expressing what they feel about their parents at home. And another child possibly says, oh my God, why would you even speak to them? And they're like, right. Oh, mom, dad, whomever, see ya.
right.
Because roommate said, you should go no contact. Like they're ridiculous. They sound awful. So now layer in what's the financial responsibility? If you want to use that to keep your child on a string and to get them to jump, you will threaten them with that. And I'm not suggesting you do that
It doesn't
because
sound healthy
again,
either.
that's the pushing factor.
Right, right,
That's
right.
whatever string you use, whatever threat you put in is pushing your child to do something different.
Yeah.
And so if you say to them, oh, yeah, you're no contact? Well, guess what? Guess who's going to the local community college while you work at whatever? You're just going to lose them. And so, first of all, it's never the parents' financial responsibility to send a child to college. So let's look at that also. There are plenty of families that are working so hard to have that income for their child to go. And there are also children who are working hard themselves to pay their way through college. But,
Yes, very good
and
point.
I'm glad you brought it up because this tends to be potentially a landmine for the parents that are paying in full for their child's college to use that as ammunition, as a weapon. And I would suggest, please don't. You will
Mm.
push them further away. And are you really going to cut off their financial aid to college and have them drop out? It's just an empty threat because then what? They're on the street, they're in your home, they're working at the local whatever. That's empty and it's just more manipulation and not the way to go.
So one,
Now you
I
got me all riled up.
all right, all right. So maybe this is an easier one. I don't know. If reconciliation never happens, is there a way for the parent to accept and heal and move forward?
So I'm having a hard time hearing that question and answering it as someone that provides therapy and separating that out from being a mom. So the mom, of course, reacts first and feels absolutely devastated. And I don't know that I would ever recover slash accept that. That doesn't mean I can do anything about it.
Mhm.
But if I put myself in that situation, I feel that I would always internally be on the quest to reconnect. Notice I said internally and not out there pushing. I would try in whatever way and follow the lead, not to be led around on a leash by my child either, or to become Gumby, but I don't know that I would ever come to accept. Now, the therapist hat would be to work with another parent in their journey of acceptance. But we also don't know. There's no finality to that. There's no way for us to know, Carrie, that it will be that way forever.
Mhm.
Mm.
There's just no way, even if it's a disconnect for 10, 20 years, we just don't know. So the acceptance is in that moment only. This is where we are now. What can we do to help you live each day knowing that your child is out there disconnected from you?
Oof. That
Oof
is a
is right.
tough one. Is I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, that's
Thankfully, it's not our reality right now, but it is
But it is
it
the
is a
reality.
reality for so
And
reality
many.
for
I have
some.
to tell
Yep.
you, I have 16-year-olds. I don't know that it's not my reality at some point. None of us
Mhm.
are perfect
Nope.
mothers. Like I said earlier, none of us are perfect dads. None of us are perfect specimens. So we don't know what that trigger is. I would hope that each of us, listeners included, are providing an environment for your child to express themselves so that the disconnect never needs to happen, that they can feel so angry at you and express that disappointment in disdainful looks, harmful words, putting wives down, whatever it may be, where they could come to you and say, I am so angry. I just, we need to go through this because I want to move away from you, but I really don't. I hope, and if you have listeners out there in that space, provide your children with the foundation that you can talk about anything and nothing they say, even if it's expressing disappointment in you as a parent, will get you to lash out at them and not be able to look inward. We all have to look
Mm.
inward. It stinks. It's miserable and uncomfortable. You ever had a friend come and say to you, you know what? I don't like how you behaved the other day, or you made me uncomfortable, or I heard you said something nasty about me.
Yeah, sure.
That is the worst space. But I know that we all look inward and then you know what? I was wrong. I don't know what came over me. And I'm really sorry I hurt you. It's absolute discomfort, but there is only growth in discomfort. So I hope any parent that is, and again, this isn't about blame. It's not like, oh, the child left and it's all the parent. We
Mhm.
don't know that, but we're focused on that a little bit heavy in this conversation. That if that comes to be, that the parent won't feel so threatened, that their sense of self and their feeling about themselves, their self-esteem is intact enough where they could take the hit to their self-esteem and have to look inward, because it
Mm.
is a hit to self-esteem. But if you're protecting yourself from that hit, you will not reconnect with your child. That was a nice statement. Oh, I like that one.
That was very good. Jen, once again, I think you blew us both away with this with this conversation. It was really so many important topics covered around estrangement and no contact. Really thank you so much for being with us today. I really
It's so my
appreciate you.
pleasure, and I wanna say this, I wanna give away a little secret of mine. You both sent me some prep questions or ideas, and I have to confess that I never look at them. And here's why. Here's why. Because I never want the conversation to feel rehearsed. I
Hmm.
never wanna look up in or sit with myself beforehand and decide how I should answer that. And it's not to say I know everything. I don't mean it from an egocentric standpoint, but being in this field for 35 years, yes, I just dated myself for the 100th time in this episode, but I always want it to be natural. And if there's something I don't know that you'll ask me, I will say, you know what? I don't know. I need some time to
Right,
actually do some research about that or think about that deeply. But I want it to be natural. If I come rehearsed with, when your child disconnects,
right,
do
right, right.
this, it's not a free flowing, authentic relationship among us.
Well, thank you. This is why we love you so much and having you on as a guest, because it just feels like we're talking to one of our friends that
Thank you.
is
Right,
I feel the
brilliant
same.
in her own right.
right.
You are the brilliant one, and you've brought so much well,
Authenticity.
yeah, authenticity, love, and information to our conversation today. And we will make sure to include for our listeners Jen's contact information if you would love to reach out and connect with her. And
Beautiful.
as
And that one listener that wrote in, I want to let him know that he is safe to express what he needs to express to his dad. And for any other listener, parent or child, that laying that foundation of communication is really what gets us through these very tough moments.
yes,
We're
well,
getting the hat.
yep,
Yes, we're
communication is
getting the hat.
key.
Communication is
Caps
key.
are
Haps
coming.
are coming. Yep.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much to our listeners. As always, please feel free, share this episode with a friend, because we have all learned something today, even if this topic is not sitting with us as a parent today. So much useful information. So again, thank you to our listeners, and thank you, Jen, and bye, Jess.
See you soon.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Parent Coaches Unleashed with Carrie and Jessica. Together, we can raise the next generation of independent, capable, and compassionate young adults.
We encourage you to send us an email with questions and feedback to info@parentcoachesunleashed.com. Please remember, you are not alone on this parenting journey.